Your subject outlines are a good place to go to find information about which textbooks to buy. You will usually be given one of these for each subject in the first lecture, but if you are missing one or need one earlier, then you should contact the subject coordinator. Yet this landscape, which appeared so alien and confronting to the white settlers and explorers, had been home for thousands of years to indigenous Australians for whom the plains, ranges and deserts were a sustaining spiritual and integral part of their existence. The terms voice and text are multifaceted. Both have a wide range of possible meanings in everyday speech and academic uses. You may encounter the two words used in a variety of ways, in connection with different subjects, and they won't always mean exactly the same thing. The terms voice and text are multifaceted, both have a wide range of possible meanings in everyday speech and academic uses. You may encounter the two words used in variety of ways, in connection with different subjects, and they won't always mean exactly the same thing. With a population of only just over 30 million living in the world's second largest country, Canada is just Canada is justly renowned for vast tracts of wilderness untroubled by untroubled by pollution either from industry or from intensive farming methods. A major conservation issue is the battle to stop the logging of virgin forest in northern Ontario and on the west coast. Northern Ontario and on the west. With a population of only just over 30 million living in the world's second largest country, Canada is justly renowned for vast tracts of wilderness, untroubled by population either from industry or from extensive farming methods. A major conservation issue is the battle to stop the logging of virgin forest in northern Ontario and on the west coast. Sorry. For their livelihoods. This makes them particularly vulnerable to man-made and natural influences that reduce agricultural production. Since its inception, the United Nations system has been working to ensure adequate food for all those sustainable agriculture. The majority of the world's poorest people live in rural areas of developing countries. They depend on agriculture and related activities for their livelihoods. They makes them particularly vulnerable to man-made and all natural influences that reduce agricultural production. In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity prices. Fighting disrupts trades and prevent raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In Second World War, Britain, a banana was the height of luxury. In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity prices. Fighting disrupts trade and prevents raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In Second World War, Britain, a banana was the height of luxury.
Modern business has to adapt and be flexible in order to survive.
Modern businesses have to be flexible and to be adapt in order to survive.
Applicants for the course should preferably have a degree in English or journalism.
Applicants for the course should have preferably degree in journalism.
What's going on that can help patients leave their fears at the door?
What can help that can leave their patient's fear in the door?
After 1830, periodicals appeared in large numbers in America.
After 1830, periodical appears in large number in America.
The computer crashed and I hadn't saved my work.
The computer crashed and I haven't saved my work.
His academic supervisor called in to see him last night.
His academic supervisor called him to see him last night.
You should inquire about direct deposit.
You should inquire about direct deposit.
Just wait a minute, I'll be with you shortly.
Just wait a minute, I'll be with you shortly.
You must include your name and identity number on the registration form.
You must include your name and identification number in the registration form.
The graph shows the percentage of people who smoke according to gender.
The graph shows the percentage of people according to the gender. The given graph is about teaching as a career. The given table is about teaching as a career. The given table is about teaching as a career. It consists of final year students and teaching as a career. Firstly, teachers who find teaching a satisfying career is the highest number at 95%. Second, final year students and planning teaching career became the lowest number at 1%. However, recently graduate students now teaching became the 7%, being the second highest. In conclusion, the table shows the teaching as a career in different categories such as recently graduated students and the satisfying career. The given bar graph is about education pays. It consists of unemployment rate in 2007 and median weekly earnings in the year 2007. First, a doctoral degree is the highest number at 104,795. Second, master degree is the second largest number at 1100. However, associate degree ended up being the lowest number at $740, and its value for unemployment rate is 3%, which is the highest percent. In conclusion, it is about unemployment rate and median weekly earnings in the year 2007. The given bar graph is about barriers to visiting museums or art galleries. The given bar graph is about barriers to visiting museum or art galleries. It consists of transport problems, cost of entry, and caregiver responsibilities. First, lack of time is the highest number at 50. Second, not available locally is the second largest number at 35 and followed by transport problems at 20. However, lack of information about event ended up being the lowest number at 5. In conclusion, it is about barriers to visit museums or art galleries. Given map is about The given map is about Switzerland and the languages spoken in Switzerland. It consists of different languages such as Italian, German, and French. First, German is the highest spoken language in Switzerland. Second, French is the second highest spoken language in Switzerland. However, Italian ended up being the lowest spoken language in Switzerland. In conclusion, it is about the map of Switzerland and different languages spoken there. The given line graph is about volunteer rate. The given line graph is about volunteer rate age in different age groups such as 18 to 24 and 45 to 54. It consists of males and females. First, age group 35 to 44 has the highest number of males and females in the 30%. Second, age group 45 to 54 has the second largest number at 30 for both males and females. However, for 85 years and more, the number became least for both males and females at around 10%. In conclusion, it is about volunteer rate in different age groups.
To begin with, how underfunded is UK higher education? The table shows the proportion of gross domestic product spent on institutions by the main OECD countries for the latest year, for which we have statistics, 2001. It shows that UK spending, public and private, on higher education institutions was at 1.08%, well below the OECD mean of 1.34% of GDP. The table clearly shows that the UK is in the bottom 5 countries of the 20 in the table in terms of public expenditure on tertiary education, its spending being proportionately equal to that of Italy and Mexico. At the other end of the table, we see that Denmark and Finland allocate most public money to tertiary education, spending twice as high a proportion of GDP on it as does the UK.
The given lecture is about UK higher education. The speaker pointed out some interesting points to support their opinion on UK higher education and gross domestic product investment in different OECD countries. First, the speaker mentioned that public and private investment are important to fund the GDP. Second, they talked about public expenditure and tertiary education for the UK and Canada. Lastly, they also mentioned that Denmark and Finland spend more amount of money in the tertiary education, same as UK and Canada. In conclusion, it is about UK higher education.
So let me begin with the notion of a dimension. The dimension is simply how many numbers that you need to specify a location. So if we think about the surface of the Earth, the equator is one-dimensional. You need to specify only one number to specify a location on the equator, namely the longitude. The surface of the Earth altogether is, of course, two-dimensional. You need to specify two numbers, the latitude and longitude, to specify a location on the Earth. The space above the Earth is three-dimensional. If I want to tell you the location of a hang glider, I need to give you the latitude, longitude, and altitude. But mathematically, there's no reason to stop at 3 dimensions. A 4-dimensional space is simply a space in which you need to specify 4 numbers to specify a location in that space. A 5-dimensional space would be one in which you need to specify 5 numbers, etc. In fact, I claim you already know an example of a 4-dimensional space. So let's define an event just to be an occurrence that happens in a small region of space at a definite time. In other words, an event is like a snap of your fingers or a clap of your hands. And now the collection of all events, if I want to specify an event, I need to give you 4 numbers. I need to tell you where it happens in space and when it happens in time.
The given lecture is about dimension and how many number is required. An equator is the first dimension. The speaker pointed out some interesting points to support their opinion on surface of Earth is 2 dimension, that is latitude and longitude. First, the speaker mentioned that space above Earth is 3-dimensional, that is altitude, latitude and longitude. 4 and 5 dimension space need to define 4 and 5 numbers respectively. Towards the end, the speaker said that collection of all events require where and when it happened. In conclusion, the lecture was about dimension and the number involved in it.
The terms circumference, diameter, and radius refer most commonly to which geometric shape?
Circle, square, rectangular, circle.
Who prepares and sells medicine in a shop or hospital?
Doctors, nurses, pharmacist.
Where on a college campus would a periodicals collection be located?
Reception, get house, reception, library.
What part of a guitar do you strum with your fingers?
String.
What official document protects the creator's rights to his or her invention?
Copyright.
A group of 3 students are discussing ideas about how to make their campus more environmentally friendly.
So I've been thinking a lot about the environment lately, and that we should be looking at how to make the campus greener. We've got recycling bins for cardboard and cans, but that's only scratching the surface, and we could be a lot more proactive. I've heard that ink and printer cartridges can nearly always be recycled, so that could be one starting point.
Yeah, and don't forget batteries too. All the raw materials can be extracted from them for the manufacturers to reuse. So you're conserving energy, reducing pollution, and helping the economy. You know, that's another thing we could be doing. But what can we do to encourage students to actually try and recycle more? It'd be good if we could offer some incentive.
What if we asked the university to do a competition to get students to design some kind of artwork promoting recycling? I reckon people would be up for that. But what would the winners get? I think we need to draw people in somehow, create a buzz and get them talking about it, and then actually doing recycling.
Maybe the winner's artwork is displayed on the university website homepage and in the main building foyer. And then terms, we'd also need more allocated drop-off points for recyclable items. I mean, at the moment, there aren't very many places for people to recycle stuff, so it just goes into the regular garbage.
Yeah, great idea about displaying the artwork in a place everyone can see it. And maybe for the first couple of weeks after the new recycling points have been introduced, we can get a group of volunteers in those fluorescent yellow high-visibility jackets to hand out flyers, or just let people know about them.
Yes. Well, we need it to become a habit so that the next time a student has some cardboard or paper to recycle, they remember to take their used ink cartridges or batteries with them too.
And we can pass the info about the competition and the recycling points to those 2 final year students who do that really popular weekly podcast for the campus. We could also ask them to build in a regular time slot to talk more about the environment and being greener on the campus, to keep the dialogue going. We don't want to lose momentum. There's always the danger that we have a couple of months of change and then we all go back to how we were before.
Oh yes, that's a good idea. They're great, those 2 podcasters. I know loads of people who listen to them. There'll also be others who listen to their podcasts who can offer good ideas about other steps we can take. So that should, hopefully, help maximize our chances of reaching as many students as possible.
The given discussion between 3 speakers is about how to make campus environmentally friendly. The first speaker pointed out some interesting points to support their opinion on how to make campus more greener. First, the speaker mentioned that ink and printer cartridges can be recycled. Second, they mentioned that batteries can also be recycled and its materials can be used in the factories. Lastly, they also mentioned that encouraging students to recycle more is important for the making campus more friendly. The second speaker pointed out some interesting points to support their opinion on organizing competition like artwork. First, the speaker mentioned that workers' artwork can be displayed in the university homepage so that every student can see it. Second, they talked about new recycle points need to be introduced in the different parts of the campus. Lastly, they also mentioned that cardboards and papers also need to be recycled, same as the printer and ink cartridges. The third speaker pointed out some interesting points to support their opinion on 2 final students do weekly podcasts through which they can communicate this information to all the students. First, the speaker mentioned that couple of months changes and students need to maintain momentum for a long run. Second, they talked about maximizing our chances to reach as many students as possible. Lastly, they also talked about the importance of making campus greener. In conclusion, the discussion focused on how to make campus environmentally friendly. And at last, all 3 speakers agreed with each other at a certain degree.
A group of 3 students are discussing their university accommodations.
Have you sorted out your university accommodation yet? I heard that you're going to stay in the university hall this year. What made you go for that?
Well, first I like the fact that it's all-inclusive and I don't have to worry about anything. Bills, cleaning, or dealing with landlords, and all the problems that comes with renting. Also, sharing a flat with other students is loads of fun.
Maybe, but you know that it's really the luck of the draw who you end up living with. Sorry to disappoint you, but there's no guarantee you'll live with any of your friends even if you book together as a group and request to stay together. Don't you mind that you have no control whatsoever over who you're going to share your accommodation with?
I don't mind being placed with people I've never met before. In fact, in a way, I actually kind of like it. I love getting to know new people, widening the circle of my friends. That's one of the benefits of living on the university campus, isn't it?
Well, if you say so, but that's definitely not for me. I don't like being thrown in the deep end and not having any control over the people I'll be living with. Plus, having to put up with their mess and noise on a daily basis? Ugh! I had enough of that last year. So I'm going to rent a flat with one of my mates.
That's a bold move. Are you sure about that? Have you thought about all the bills you'll have to pay? And also, maintaining the property is going to be your responsibility. You'll have to do all the cleaning, too. I think campus accommodation is the best. I want to hang out with people and go to lots of events, and living on campus is going to make it easier.
I've decided to go for a shared flat. I prefer living with people who have the same habits. You know, I come from a quiet home, and the idea of having loads of people around constantly is kind of irritating. I might do it next year, but not now. I don't mind managing the bills because I like the independence and flexibility I get in return.
So you guys are giving up living very close to university, and you're prepared to pay more to be on your own. Plus, there's the cost of public transport.
Sure, but with my own place, I get a bit more space. I don't really fancy having a tiny room feeling cramped. True, I might have to go a bit further away from campus to get a cheaper rent, but I don't mind that at all. I'm planning to buy a cheap bike and cycle to class, so I'll get my daily dose of exercise.
The given discussion between three speakers is about university accommodation. The first speaker pointed out some interesting points to support their opinion on staying in university hall and paying all the bills that is inclusive. So he's very happy. He do not need to pay any gardening, any maintenance bill. Second, they talked about sharing flat with other friend and it is fun. Lastly, they also mentioned that no control of sharing accommodation and he loves getting to know other people and widen the circles. The second speaker pointed out some interesting points to support their opinion on other students make much mess and make noises which can feel bored for him. First, the speaker mentioned that renting a flat with friends is a good idea. Second, they talked about campus accommodation is the best idea because it can save the extra expenses. Lastly, they also mentioned that prefer living with the people of same habits and managing bill is not a problem to find the independent living. The third speaker pointed out some interesting points to support their opinion on cost of public transportation. First, the speaker mentioned that getting more space and cheaper rent is a very good idea for him. Lastly, they also mentioned that cheap bike can be helpful and they can get daily dose of good exercise. In conclusion, the university focus on university accommodation and how students can manage their billings and expenses by sharing a flat with the other classmates and living in the apartment to find the peaceful environment.
One of your friends from school is going away to start university next week. She's excited, but sad to say goodbye. Some of you are discussing ideas for a present to give her for her new apartment. What would you suggest to them?
Hello friends, how are you today? Firstly, I would like to inform you that one of my friends from school is going away to start university next week. Secondly, it seems that she's excited but sad to say goodbye. Therefore, we are planning to give a present to her for her new apartment. We are planning to give her a microwave because she cannot cook. So we want to make sure she doesn't become thin by not eating food. So we make sure she's eating properly and focus on her studies. I really hope that you'll understand our ideas and I'm looking forward to your positive response.
You have decided that you don't want to take the course in mechanical engineering. Your friend has dropped a course recently. You want your friend to tell you the correct procedure to follow and when the deadline is for getting a tuition refund. What do you say?
Hello friends, how are you today? Firstly, I would like to inform you that I have decided that I don't want to take the course in mechanical engineering. Secondly, it seems that my friend has dropped a course recently. Therefore, I want to tell my friend to correct this procedure to follow when the deadline is for getting a tuition refund. I would say to him that please follow the procedures properly because getting a refund on time is very important for him and for his further study. So I really hope that he will understand this situation and looking forward to a positive outcome.
seems to me that architecture is very much something that causes us both pleasure and trouble. I live in a part of West London where I feel that many of the streets where I live are really ugly, and this distresses me every time I walk to the supermarket or walk to the tube. I think, God, why did they build that? And the terrible problem with architecture is that it lasts so long. You know, if you write a bad book or do a bad play, you know, it'll have a short run and then be shelved and no one will suffer. A bad building has a serious impact for, could be hundreds of years on the people around it. And so I suppose that the book arose a little bit from a kind of frustration, almost anger, that there was so much bad architecture around. And then I realized that if you talk to architects and you say, why are buildings not more beautiful? They'll say, oh, how can you use such a word as beauty? That's a really arrogant word. No one knows what's beautiful. It's all in the eye of the beholder. And I couldn't help but think that actually, well, you know, we all tend to agree that, you know, Rome is nicer than Milton Keynes and that, you know, San Francisco has the edge over Frankfurt. And I thought, well, if we can make that sort of generalization, surely there are some things we can say about why a building works and why it doesn't. And so the book is really an attempt to suggest why architecture works when it does and what might be going wrong when it doesn't work.
In his book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Other Clinical Tales, neurologist Oliver Sacks relates the tale of a medical student who one day woke up and found that his sense of smell was so acute that like a dog he could walk around identifying people, places, and things by his sense of smell. And what a wondrous experience it was. Like a visit to another world, he said. And normally we humans don't have a sense of smell as acute as many other animals. We tend to rely more on what we see or hear to tell us about the world. Still, our sense of smell is powerful. Most of us can detect 10,000 different odors, from cigar smoke to a chlorinated swimming pool, from curry to a city sewer. And think about how a particular odor can instantly conjure up past memories. Maybe it's fresh cut grass that makes you think of childhood summers, or baking bread that reminds you of a special holiday.
At the moment, med students get very few chances to practice giving injections, with very expensive imported simulation pads being shared between 20 or so students in a class. Arjun and Jag really focused on developing a product that was accessible to all students.
With the different malls right now, we have both the standard unit and the professional unit. The standard unit is for people that have access to syringes and so on and so forth. So these are usually your nursing colleges and so on. And for them, we obviously don't want to put in unnecessary material to keep the cost down for them. Our primary goal was to have something that was affordable and efficient for students. You know, being students ourselves, we knew that was important right from the get-go.
So in a very important sense, memory is the cognitive function that stores knowledge that we've acquired through learning and perception. But also, memory is important because memory frees our behavior from control by the present stimulus environment. If you didn't have memory, all you'd be able to do is to react to whatever's currently in the environment now, whatever it is that you're experiencing. But memory allows us to respond to past events as well as events in the current stimulus environment. And memory also gives us the means to reflect on our experiences so that we plan for future encounters.
Experimental psychological research is conducted in a lab under controlled conditions. It attempts to rely solely on an application of research methods to understand behavior and mental processes. As an example of a psychological experiment, you might want to investigate people's perception of different tones. Specifically, you could ask the following question. Is it easier for people to discriminate one pair of tones from another depending on their frequency? To answer this, you would want to disprove the hypothesis that all tones are equally easy to discriminate.
In the United States, the poet Walt Whitman published a work called Democratic Vistas. This was in 1871, and I quote from that work. He's talking here about the development of a program of culture drawn out, not for a single class alone, or for the parlors or lecture rooms, but with an eye to the practical life and to the West, the working man, the facts and forms and jack planes and engines, of the broad range of the woman also, of the middle class and working strata, and with reference to the perfect equal quality of women and of a grand and powerful motherhood. So these ideas of the individual, the ordinary individual, as someone who has a right and a responsibility to an education, had begun clearly to emerge in the United States.
Hey, Sally. How are you?
You all right, yeah.
Look, I was wondering, did you go to Alan Johnson's lecture on globalisation yesterday?
Of course. And why weren't you there?
I had a bit of a nightmare. My alarm didn't go off and I overslept.
Oh, John, that's pathetic.
I know. Was it any good, the lecture?
Well, yeah. No, actually it was quite interesting, but it was a bit complicated. I took some notes, actually.
Fantastic.
We need a bit of stress in our lives to keep us alert, to keep us going, but we also need to have that burst of stress that then is managed and drops again. It's when stress remains high constantly that we're in real problems. And that's the real concern with the way our society is organised today, is that we put people in situations that do leave them chronically stressed.
How difficult do you feel your life is at present?
To find out if Australian families are too stressed, the longitudinal study asks behavioural science questions.
How well do you think you're coping?
In Life at One, we add some biological science. We trawl the saliva of our parents and babies for a hormone called cortisol. When we're stressed, our physical response and the emotions we feel are triggered by chemicals released in our body. First is adrenaline, providing the increased heart rate every kid needs to escape a bully. But if the threat continues, our body goes on high alert and cortisol kicks in to shut down parts of the brain.
And the things that we shut down are things like rational thinking, memories, our immune system, and a range of other things that, I guess, through evolution, our body is determined that aren't necessary to deal with the immediate trauma.
But if a child is continually stressed, constantly shutting down their memory and immune system can seriously affect the way their brain grows.
I think there are too many people in the federal parliament ambience at the moment who take themselves extraordinarily seriously. And that's not just politicians. It's a lot of the staff of politicians. The ministerial advisor thing has grown out of all proportion. And you get these, you see them at election times, all strutting around in Hugo Boss suits talking on mobiles. When a politician is seen on the television, all these staffers and so on, they're very self-important people usually. And they all want to be politicians when they grow up.
The neuroendocrine system is under particular onslaught in our modern life. Not only does it serve as the conduit for our emotional life, but it is also under threat from our external environment. The amount of chemicals acting as so-called endocrine disruptors is going up by the day. These chemicals, which range from pesticides and herbicides to ingredients of plastics, which look chemically like some of the hormones in our bodies, can then bind to the receptor and cause a stimulation of the receptor, or block it so that the appropriate hormone cannot.
I mean, it saves so much time if you just include the page numbers for any quotes that you've written down, everything. Have you been doing that?
No, I haven't actually. I've been keeping a note of the books and obviously who wrote them and their editors and things like that, but no, I haven't been keeping the actual page numbers.
Right, well, just from my own experience when I was a postgrad, I found that I just wasted so much time when I had to go back, because the thing is, you will have to revise the work that you do, and you can save so much time if you've actually got all the page numbers written down as well, because it means you can go back to the exact quote that you found and work on it there.
Does that mean that you could try to figure out the connection between, or the relationship between behavior and these technological settings in such a way that you could try to create a technological setting that allowed just those types of behavior that were good? I'm intending this to be a very simple question, perhaps too simple, but that's an open question. Can you construct a technological setup so that it implies a certain type of behavior?
Rivers provide habitat and migration pathways for numerous aquatic species.
Teaching assistants will receive a monthly stipend for housing.
To gain full marks, an appropriate bibliography is required.